In the news tonight, the government's economic team and the Economic Policies Council discuss growth-stimulating plans taken by various economic sectors. Israel strikes an arms depot operated by the Hezbollah group near Damascus airport. And Palestinians across the occupied West Bank and Gaza Strip stage a general strike in solidarity with hunger-striking Palestinian prisoners. Good evening and welcome to the news at 10. Prime Minister Hani Mulki led the government economic team on a visit to the National Electric Power Company, NEPCO, part of tours of key companies and institutions that are motors of growth. He said at a meeting with the company's chairman, Abdel Fattah Qtayshat, that he pinned high hopes on NEPCO as one of the giant national companies to positively affect economic growth. He also voiced the hope that the company would increase its production, adding that the efficiency of the electricity sector would spur the other economic sectors. Mulki said diversifying energy sources requires creating electric generating stations of varying technologies, including solar, wind and nuclear energy. He also said the national power companies had a tremendous opportunity to export electricity and should be ready to participate in the reconstruction process in neighboring countries under national and international partnership. The Prime Minister spoke of the need to raise NEPCO's production and service capacity and to coordinate with local electricity distributing companies to minimize lost energy. Also today, Prime Minister Mulki chaired a joint meeting of the government's economic team and the Economic Policies Council. The meeting discussed final proposals for the various economic sectors to stimulate growth, to overcome economic hardships and enhance the competitiveness of the national economy. Mulki said the government had embarked on practical and serious measures to prop up growth in a number of vital sectors which are engines of growth. He was referring to recent visits by the government's economic team to companies and institutions that directly contribute to GDP. Mulki said the government is serious about forging an effective partnership with the private sector and to bring the private sector into the economic development process. He said the Social Security Corporation's investment fund had started participating in government projects and expressed hope that Jordanian banks will also join the ventures. Deputizing for His Majesty the King, Chief Justice Abdul Karim Khawasne opened a conference on Islam and contemporary challenges. The three-day gathering of Muslim clerics, intellectuals and academics is an outcome of the International Conference on the Amman Message, which was held in Jakarta, Indonesia in 2013. Head of the conference's preparatory committee, Abdul Salam Abadi, said the conference will discuss 35 working papers on ways to address challenges facing Islam and the Muslim world. The conference will also discuss efforts to combat terrorism, Muslim women's issues, globalization, Islamic media's role, Islamophobia, sectarianism, and ways to tackle poverty and unemployment. Minister of Foreign and Expatriate Affairs Ayman Safadi discussed in a phone call with his French counterpart Jean-Marc Ayrault the Syrian crisis and other regional developments. Safadi also discussed over the telephone with Swedish Minister for Foreign Affairs Margot Wallström efforts to achieve peace between the Palestinian and Israel and Jordanian-Swedish ties. Interior Minister Ghalib al-Zabi discussed with London Metropolitan Police's Acting Deputy Commissioner Mark Rowley security and policing cooperation between Jordan and Britain. They also talked about ways to address security challenges resulting from regional and international developments, mainly the fight against terrorism, extremism and crime. Jordan, the minister said, has adopted a sustainable and comprehensive anti-terrorism strategy by spreading awareness about all forms of religion and ethnic extremism and its threat to international peace and security. The British official said his country would boost cooperation with Jordan in security and other fields. State Minister for Media Affairs Mohammed Momeni commended the International Islamic News Agency INA in promoting pan-Islamic issues. Momeni told the agency's Director General Isa Khairi Roble that the agency and other Islamic media outlets should have an enhanced role in the fight against terrorism and extremism and to clarify the true image of Islam. He said the war against extremism and terrorism is not just a military one, but it's an ideological, cultural and media war. Director General of Jordan News Agency Petra Faisal Shboul said the National News Agency is ready to boost cooperation with the Islamic Agency in technical and training fields. A fire broke out in an administrative office of the Prime Ministry, killing an Egyptian worker and injuring 4 others. The fire was caused by an electrical short circuit which occurred during maintenance work. Civil defense firefighting crews put out the blaze. Army border guards foiled an attempt by 2 persons to infiltrate the border and cross into the kingdom. A source at the Army General Command Headquarters said troops applied the rules of engagement, arresting the infiltrators and referring them to the concerned authorities. Israel struck an arms supply hub operated by the Lebanese group Hezbollah near Damascus airport, targeting weapons sent from Iran. Syrian state media said Israeli missiles hit a military position southwest of the airport, but did not mention arms. Here's more.
Explosions lighting the night sky outside Damascus Thursday morning, an airstrike hitting an arms supply hub operated by the Lebanese group Hezbollah near the city's airport. That's according to Syrian rebel and regional intelligence sources. It's thought that Israel was targeting weapons sent from Iran via commercial and military cargo planes. Tel Aviv not officially claiming responsibility, but Intelligence Minister Israel Katz telling a radio station the airstrikes were compatible with Israel's policy on Syria. Israel has largely kept out of the war in Syria, but President Bashar al-Assad is backed by Russia, Iran and regional Shiite militias. These include Hezbollah, a close ally of Tehran and enemy of Israel, which describes the group as the biggest threat it faces. Now Syrian military defectors familiar with the airport say it plays a major role as a conduit for arms from Tehran. Israel says Hezbollah has built up an arsenal of more than 100,000 rockets. The last conflict between the two left 1,300 people dead and uprooted more than 1 million Lebanese and thousands of Israelis.
Iraqi paramilitary units captured the northern province of Hatra, cutting off several desert tracks used by Daesh terrorist group to move between Iraq and Syria. A military spokesman said the militias dislodged Daesh from the ancient ruins of Hatra, which suffered great destruction under the group's 3-year rule. Hatra, a city that flourished in the 1st century AD, lies 125 kilometers south of Mosul, where the terrorists have been fighting off an offensive by Iraqi army since October. The terror group is surrounded in the northwestern part of Mosul. Palestinians across the occupied West Bank and Gaza Strip staged a general strike in solidarity with Palestinian prisoners who are on a hunger strike. The open-ended hunger strike was to protest against poor conditions and Israel's policy of detention without trial that has been applied against thousands of detainees over the past decades. Here's more.
Schools, banks and businesses across the West Bank were shut as Palestinians observed a general strike in solidarity with more than 1,500 prisoners in Israeli jails who are on a hunger strike. Transportation came to a halt and public and private institutions, including universities, were shut for the day as well. The hunger strike began on April the 16th, led by detained Palestinian leader Marwan al-Barghouthi, who is serving 5 life terms for his involvement in the Second Intifada against the Israeli occupation. At a protest camp near the old city of Ramallah, relatives of detainees sat on plastic chairs surrounded by images of prisoners on strike as loudspeakers blasted songs hailing the prisoners. The mother of a prisoner on strike said she had joined the strike for personal and political reasons.
What made me go to the solidarity tent is my son who is not eating or drinking. I call for the whole world to stand in solidarity not only the Palestinian leadership. We and the whole world should go and protest. The courts to stop and the whole world to stop.
Head of the Palestinian Prisoners Club, Faris Qaddoura, said the issue of prisoners' rights had helped breach political divisions in the Palestinian society.
This day is special because the Palestinian people are united behind the prisoners in their battle, their uprising against injustice. Today proves that for 10 years, Gaza and the West Bank have united in one activity. Today, this has been achieved, which proves that the Palestinian people are united by struggle and resistance and divided by politics.
Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has announced Friday to be a day of rage. He called for Palestinians to express their unity by performing Friday prayers at the many solidarity tents that have already been set up across the West Bank. Rana Hassan for the News at 10.
South Korea and the United States agreed on swift punitive measures against North Korea in the event of further provocation. But China said it welcomes an apparently softer tone by the United States on the tension in the Korean peninsula. Russia and Japan also called for restraint. Here's more.
China welcomed an apparently softer tone by the United States on a North Korean nuclear and missile crisis. The Trump administration said yesterday it aimed to push North Korea into dismantling its nuclear and missile programs through tougher international sanctions and diplomatic pressure.
We have noted the relevant comments and have noted the messages conveyed in these comments, hoping to resolve the Korean nuclear issue peacefully through dialogue and consultation. We believe this message is positive and should be affirmed. We hope and believe that all relevant parties involved in Korean Peninsula issues have noted the message sent by the United States.
China has long promoted dialogue to resolve the Korean nuclear issue, as North Korea has repeatedly threatened to destroy the United States, which in turn has warned that all options are on the table in ending North Korean provocations. South Korea welcomed the U.S. statement made after a White House-hosted briefing for the entire Senate on North Korea. The South Korean Foreign Ministry said the U.S. move is the strongest ever. South Korean Foreign Ministry spokesman Cho Hyuk said his government is continuing close cooperation with the U.S. against North Korea based on the two countries' common awareness of the urgency and graveness of this issue. The South also said the deployment of a U.S. anti-missile defense system was moving ahead effectively a day after angry protests against the battery and fierce opposition from China. China says the system's advanced radar can penetrate deep into its territory and undermine its security. It is adamant in its opposition. Separately, Russian President Vladimir Putin and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe called on North Korea and other countries to avoid behavior or rhetoric that could increase tensions around North Korea's nuclear program. They said after talks in Moscow that they agreed to cooperate closely to try to help diffuse tensions around North Korea. Late Shanqiti for the News at 10.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel told Britons not to delude themselves that they would continue to enjoy EU rights after Brexit. She insisted the bloc would only agree on future ties with London after they have nailed down a deal to leave. Striking a firm tone in a speech to the Bundestag, or lower house of parliament, before a weekend summit on Brexit, Merkel also said talks on Britain's financial obligations to the EU would have to be addressed early on in the talks. Merkel said she shared the view of European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker that the Brexit negotiations could only get going properly after Britain's June 8th election.
Die Reihenfolge unseres Vorgehens ist dabei.
Dear colleagues, you might think that this is a matter of fact, but unfortunately, I have to say clearly that I have the feeling some people in Great Britain still have illusions. This, however, would be a waste of time. Britain's negotiations to leave the European Union will be very demanding, both for the British and the remaining 27 members of the bloc.
A 27-year-old man was detained in London by counter-terrorism officers on Parliament Street, a stone's throw from the UK Parliament building and Downing Street office. Police said the man was arrested during a stop and search as part of an ongoing operation. They said they knew of no immediate further threat as a result of the arrest and that counter-terrorism officers were continuing their investigation. A security source later said the man was known to counter-terrorism officers and Britain's domestic intelligence agency MI5 before his arrest. Third seed Rafael Nadal remains on course for a 10th Barcelona Open title, advancing to the quarterfinals with a 6-3, 6-4 victory over Kevin Anderson. It was Nadal's 50th victory at the tournament. He has won 9 times, and the Spaniard never looked in danger against the world number 66, forcing 10 break points throughout the match in the same championship. And also the world number 1 Andy Murray is in action tonight, taking on Feliciano Lopez. Boxing heavyweight IBF champion Anthony Joshua said he is confident and ready for the toughest fight of his career so far on Saturday, as he prepares to face one of the sport's all-time greats, Vladimir Klitschko. The 27-year-old Joshua said he's trained hard for the fight against a man who's been in the sport since the 2012 Olympic champion was born. Ukrainian Klitschko said he was obsessed with reclaiming the heavyweight title he lost against Britain's Tyson Fury in November 2015 in his first defeat in 11 years. Klitschko has won 64 of his 68 fights.
Can you imagine my next opponent?
And let's have a look at the weather forecast. It will be relatively cold tonight in the highlands and desert areas, but fair in the Jordan Valley and the Dead Sea. Winds will be northwesterly moderate. Tomorrow, sunny spring conditions will prevail across the hilly areas, with warm conditions in the eastern plains and Badia, but relatively hot in the Dead Sea with a high of 33 degrees. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect a hot day Friday, with some high clouds, northerly winds and calm seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. And to the news, here are top stories once again. The government's economic team and the Economic Policy Council discussed growth-stimulating plans taken by various economic sectors. Israel strikes an arms depot operated by the Hezbollah group near Damascus airport. And Palestinians across the occupied West Bank and Gaza Strip stage a general strike in solidarity with hunger-striking Palestinian prisoners. And with that, we come to the end of tonight's news. I'm Leo Balkar. Have a lovely weekend.